everybody. I'm Adam again. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
Cool. I'm excited to chat with you guys. You all about it, the new song. I just heard it, and this is kind of all about your journey in music in a way, and how you all met, and we'll talk about the music and everything.
Gorgeous.
Sweet. Well, I'm gonna start with Daniel because you're the first one on the top of my list here as far as my Zoom goes. Where were you born and raised? Is everybody from Los Angeles?
Most of us are. I was born in Sherman Oaks, California. Grew up there.
Okay.
Am I supposed to answer for everyone else?
No. I'll go through everybody, but yeah, Sherman Oaks. Okay, I know the area. I'm from San Diego originally. I moved to Nashville about a year and
very cool.
3 years ago. My bad.
We love both cities.
Cool. So born and raised in Sherman Oaks, and how did you get into music? Do you come from a musical household or creative household, anything like that?
My parents are absolutely music lovers. My dad played the recorder.
Oh, rad.
But in terms of any bands or anything like that, it was really just me. My parents, the rule in the house was that we had to learn an instrument, and that at 18 we could decide to quit if we wanted to. So
oh wow, so you had to play all the way through like high school, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, but I loved it. I took to it immediately.
Okay. Did you play bass, or what was your instrument?
I started with trombone.
Okay.
And then at 11 I picked up the bass, and that was the bug. That was it.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, what about you, Colin? Born and raised in LA area?
Born and raised in LA, in the West Valley of Los Angeles.
Right on. Do you come from a musical household?
Not at all. I started playing guitar initially when I come from a very musical family in terms of appreciation for music, but no one in my family except for my brother, my half brother, kind of similar to me, taught himself how to play piano later in life.
Okay.
And then eventually moved to the accordion.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think he's like, what's the most annoying thing I can play that's not a bagpipe? So I just fell in love with music at probably 13 or so. Got my first guitar and just kind of fiddled around from there. But I was pretty late to the game playing piano. I started playing piano at 26.
Really?
25.
And that's the instrument you play in the band, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So it was guitar mainly up until 26 years old when you started on piano?
It was more songwriting. It was
okay.
I went to music college for a songwriting degree. I was never much of a guitar player, but I can fumble my way through. And when we started the band, actually, we couldn't find a keyboard player that stuck. So at some point, I think Justin was like, why don't you just, buy a keyboard and see if you can, teach yourself and get through this, and eventually got a teacher. So so I started doing that pretty late in life.
Let's go down to Justin.
Hello.
Hey, Justin, how are you? Born and raised in LA as well?
Yes, like Colin, West Valley of LA. He and I went to high school together, actually. I would say a musical family, music lovers. My dad used to play the trumpet and drums when he was a kid and throughout his 20s a bit. So there's a drum kit at my house growing up. So I used to tinker. And I think they just were open to me pursuing, kind of whatever my passion was. And at the time that kind of really drew me in the most, pursuing music. And
so you and Colin, you said went to high school together. Is that how the band kind of started? You all meet early on in life?
Colin and I were in junior high school together. When he was in college with Danny and Luka, he kind of tapped me to play drums upon hearing Luka sing and wanted to form a band. I was kind of the go-to drummer for him based on our history together.
Did you guys play in bands prior?
No, he was in better bands.
We all jammed, we'd jam and have kickbacks and parties, but never a formal band until now.
Okay, right on. Okay, we'll go to you, Luca. So, where were you born and raised? LA as well?
No, Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley.
Oh, okay. Well, and then you
Yeah,
go. What took you to LA? Was it college then?
yeah. I left pretty much right away, which wasn't the plan. I was gonna go to New York, but couldn't get into any schools. So I just left and went right to the West Coast, which I had never been to, and that's where I met Colin and Danny. Actually, we went to the same college.
Oh, okay. And what about music? Were you did you grow up in a musical household at all?
Um, Sort of, more of like a showman household. My dad really loved when he was a kid putting on like plays and stuff, and that kind of and carried into his adulthood. And I saw a lot of musicals with him in them. And then, my he played the bass, and my mom used to play the saxophone. So
Yeah.
they're music lovers, and but they also were just really about the show. So I think I kind of picked that up.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
the
yeah, your
theatrics.
band is pretty theatrical in that
Yeah.
sense, and your voice is incredible, man. It's just like,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's like next level. Did you do like musical theater and all of that?
It's been a very long time in high school for sure. I think that was the most like the theater outlet that I could, but I was really driven to like straight plays, and I really
Oh,
for a while was really excited about like just being an actor. And then I started doing music in college on the side, doing this like little indie project, and the music was absolute shit, but I was having a great time. And that's when Colin found me. I was playing some warehouse gig. My friend let me open for them, and he was like, "You have a great voice, but what do you want?" And I was like, "A band," but I didn't know any musicians because I hadn't really surrounded myself with any. So luckily, he pulled these talented lot together.
amazing. What about you, Chance? Born and raised in LA or different spot?
Yes, born and raised LA, San Fernando Valley, Sherman Oaks, like
Okay.
most of them, or yeah, four of us Valley
Yeah,
kids.
but only two knew each other prior.
I met so yeah, I came onto the band a little later after the inception of it, uh and I met Colin at a agency for film composers after I finished college, and that was around 2016,
Okay.
Colin,
Yeah, like
ish, in
2017.
that
Yeah.
realm. Yeah, 17. And then yeah, one day Colin asked if I wanted to come jam, and here I am.
Okay.
And
So
then yeah, background. Yeah. All right, we can keep going.
okay, cool. So it sounds like Colin, you were kind of like the ringleader in pulling everybody together for this.
Yeah. So when I met Luca, I actually had left music school, and I was not interested in like playing music anymore.
Interesting. Were you
Yeah,
going just like for song? Like, what were you going to college for? I think maybe you said it, and I just
I
forgot.
did. Yeah, no, I went for songwriting.
Okay, you
And
did.
yeah, and it just like I just left very disillusioned. I was like, everyone's more talented than I am. Everyone's working harder than I am at music. Like, I'm never gonna cut it. I'm never gonna make it doing what I'm doing. So when I left, I went to the business side. So I wanted to become like a manager. Like
Mhm.
Chance said, that's where we met. We met at an agency where we both worked as assistants to like agents for film composers.
Okay.
And then when I met Luca, I was like, oh, I'm gonna manage him. That's what I want to do. I'm gonna just like take him. I'm gonna put an act together, and I'm just gonna manage. And I did that for like 2 years. Um, Before, and I was helping, I was helping kind of songwrite a little bit, and like we rehearsed in my bedroom. But after a period of time, it became clear that we needed a keyboard player, and with label interest and management interest, it was kind of like, I'm probably gonna lose my job if I don't figure out a way to like be a more salient member of the group. So that's when the keyboard started happening, and yeah, it was just kind of like luck and happenstance that these four guys were the first people I called after Luke and I kind of met and had a drink.
Okay. So Luca, was that Perda, that band or that
Yeah,
project?
yeah, that was.
That was just the two of you then? That was just
No. That was all of us.
Oh, it
Save,
was.
yeah, even Chance was there for part of years, towards the end. But yeah, that was the first iteration of this band. It wasn't really till we signed, and then we went into the studio and made the music that produced comedy, that we decided to change the name. One, because nobody could fucking pronounce Perta. Everybody kept saying Petra, which is a Christian rock band. So not really what you want to be mistaken for. Very different, very different. But yeah, so then we were like, I had already been toying with the idea of changing the name, and the boys were like, let's fucking do it. So we came up with the Scarlet Opera.
Love it, love it. So the project that yourself and Colin were doing was totally different. Wasn't this at all? It wasn't Perta.
It was Perta right away. Like
okay.
Colin said, he invited me for a drink. I said I wanted a band. He pulled Justin and Danny into the group, and we went through a couple keyboard players through a couple of years. Then we and guitarists, and then Chance came in, kind of pulled in the cinematic elements that we had been longing for and missing, and then then we changed during the pandemic, the band name. But yeah, it's pretty much, it was Perta and then this.
Wow. And so when Colin found you, you were doing a totally different project then. You were just doing a solo thing?
I went as like Nave or something, and the EP, there was like one song that sort of took off on SoundCloud, but the rest were shit. The producer was a bit nuts. Actually, don't say that, because it is actually crazy. So leave that part out. I don't want him following me, but he's a crazy guy. Don't know where he is in the world, but yeah, no. It just wasn't working out, and I wasn't that happy, but I was just happy to be doing music. And fortunately for me, Colin heard what could have been and what is now.
Very cool. So when all of you got together, and this could be for anyone to answer, did you all gel pretty quickly? Was it like, wow, this is awesome, like this is working, like this I think could be a really cool thing?
I think so, yeah. We would just write songs, jam. It was very loose and very free. So it was a space where we could all just try things and learn each other's tastes and abilities. And yeah, I think it came very natural. It was easy.
And then you started playing around LA? That was the next move?
We did our first show at Cal Arts University, where 3 of these guys went to school. And from there, we just hit up the littlest bars, the back rooms of LA, that, it's funny to look back now, but there's some nostalgia with that as well.
Sure.
Yeah, we graduated up to bigger venues. We did the Troubadour was like a big thing. We did like an opening slot there, and we did a headlining slot, and we did another headlining slot, and then, started playing across the country a bit, and we were getting called for, gigs in different states, and it just kind of grew organically over, the better part of a decade almost.
Yeah. I mean, to go from opening up, the Troubadour is such an iconic venue, obviously, but then to headline that place the first time, I mean, was that kind of like the moment where you're like, this is like, we can do this? Like, I think, like, did you feel like, that must have been a big victory for the band?
Yeah, I think so. It was very cool. I mean, it was a lot of, like there was hype, there was buzz, there were industry people there was all this talk. And then, the pandemic was this big, speed bump for us, this roadblock, but it actually provided the opportunity to reflect, and I think it's what allowed the Scarlet Opera to really come into its own as the entity that it is. And from there, it became very clear, I think, what we were doing, and that's what the last couple of years have really highlighted.
So with the pandemic, that was prior to changing the name and everything, right? Or even prior to that first, prior to comedy?
Yeah. Comedy was birthed of the pandemic. I think we just got in the studio 2021. So a little ways into it, we were, things were sort of starting to open up. There was the light at the end of the tunnel, but we had like 2 or 3 weeks in a studio, and we just we wrote, we recorded. I think we finished pretty much all angles of it, and then that became comedy. Yeah.
So with and again, this could be for anyone, like once you headline the Troubadour and all these big things are happening, and then the pandemic hits. I mean, you said it was a roadblock, but it must have been. Was that a point of like, is this something that we could sustain? Like, are we going to keep going with this? Like, how did you all feel about that?
Yeah, I think we were all, I mean, we were getting money from the government that they were supplementing artists. There was, you know, figuring out what are we doing. We're, you know, spent the better part of 9 months truly away from one another. I think we were able to get together and do basically a Zoom concert, and we recorded our parts separately. It was like a fundraiser, and that was maybe the only real, you know, group band effort we were able to do. There were sessions going on. Luka and Chance were leading songwriting sessions that, you know, our label had put us in touch with people, but it was really a lot of stabs in the dark and uncertainty. So it was definitely a daunting time.
So Colin, you and Luka were doing songwriting. Was that for other artists, or was that for you? You're just working to write for each or your project?
It was Chance and Luka.
Chance and Luka, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. And they were doing it. I'll let them speak on it because I, you know, was kind of privy to after the fact. But no, they were kind of, when we signed, it was kind of unique because we were like a very small. This was like right, you know, kind of at the beginning of the age of like the social media blow up and TikTok and all those things. Were like, we got signed with basically like very little audience and almost no music recorded. We had like one song recorded. We just did a bunch of live shows. So it's kind of interesting because like people would come to our shows and be like, oh, these guys are great. But on paper, we didn't have a ton to like speak for us. So sure. I think when we started with the label and management, it was kind of like, okay, like how do we get people that we want, the caliber of people to work with, to get how talented these guys are, if they don't have like receipts to be like, look at these streaming numbers or look at this following. So I think Chance and Luka speed dating trial, which I'm sure wasn't like the most fun just because it was over Zoom where they're in two different, you know, cities or rooms, and then there's a producer and another. It's a whole thing, but they can speak on that more. But yeah, it was just a bunch of meeting people and writing.
Yeah, Luka, so you're writing with other people and for this project. And I mean, if you're writing something and then Chance is writing something, how does it like, how do you decipher, okay, this should be a song for the band or
well,
not?
I mean, it was hard. There was a lot that was like unusable, but you know, there was some interesting pieces. It was honestly, the way that Chance and I think saw it was more of just like an exercise in skill building. You know, we took it seriously because there was really nothing else the fuck to do. So we wrote some really terrible music, and we wrote some really cool music, and some of them we even played as the world started opening back up. But you know, never really kind of felt exactly right. And I think that's really what you miss, which a lot of artists spoke about as the world was opening back up in these Zoom sessions that we all went into, is you kind of miss the energy of you know, the band and other artists in the room. And you can't really write a song without the other boys being there. That's, you know, for the band without the band, you know. So
right.
So yeah, I don't think we actually used pretty much any of the music that we wrote in the pandemic. The 3 weeks that in the studio, right, that sort of was when we went, here we are, you know. But I will say a lot of the music, pop writing prowess that we got from writing with some of the best writers, because mind you, a lot of people's schedules flew open, you know, because of the pandemic. So we did get to write with some of the best writers in the industry, which was exciting and wonderful, and sometimes terrible, because everyone's got an ego. But for the most part, we got to take those skills and then apply it to our world that we had already been building, which was more theatrical and a little bit, you know, cinematic.
And with like, as Colin was talking about, with the, you know, to get signed by a big label and to have all of these, you know, without the receipts, you know what I mean? Like that's so rare nowadays. I mean, obviously that's a huge validation to be like this label wants to put time and effort into our band, even though we don't have X million streams and followers. And because I've had a lot of artists on where they'll get the attention of the big labels or of these people due to viral moments on, you know, TikTok or having a big song do something or get a playlist or whatever.
Yeah, we would jokingly say we would do things, we're doing things the old-fashioned way, because they really did sign us on belief and potential. That first Troubadour show that we played and headlined, we had, I think, less than 5,000 followers on Instagram, but we sold it out. there was a big
So
buzz
crazy.
around town about the live show. I think a lot of artists these days, they have maybe the hit single, but they don't have the presence that these boys have on stage, that we have on stage. And so because of that, we kind of worked in a different direction. And now I think we're not really interested in chasing numbers as much as we are like chasing the moment.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And what you all have accomplished, I mean, getting the late night shows, and you were on Alec Baldwin's podcast. I saw that's wild in itself, right?
Very out of pocket. Chance can talk about that.
Yeah, Chance, tell me about being on Alec Baldwin's podcast. That's just so. When I saw that, I'm like, wait, what? That's awesome.
So my mom has known Alec for a while, and I guess through social media, Alec became privy to our music and live show, and just one day asked if we wanted to do his podcast, and we did.
That's so crazy. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine. and also, I mean, to have, I saw an interview you guys talking about. Neil Patrick Harris is a fan, and Alec Baldwin likes the band, and it's like you have all this. Do you have the receipts in that way of big people that people know, like are like stoked on your band, and the following doesn't matter in the sense of like if you're selling tickets and people care and you have everything in place, whereas a lot of artists, maybe they write half a chorus to a song and it goes viral, and then it's like, oh, I got to try to figure out how to write the rest of this, and then there's no backlog to anything else on Spotify, or maybe they haven't even put the song up. And you all have put yourself in a position where, not that you have huge songs, but it's like at the time when you signed, it was like, well, we have the foundation here when it all comes together.
It was one of the benefits to being unimaginably broke, because we couldn't this was kind of like early Chance days, because Chance obviously has a lot of the production skills that we now can utilize and record in very minimal ways of being like, oh, I can bring my laptop and a mic and blah blah. But in the early days, we were trying to get in a full room, we didn't have drum mics or anything like that, so we couldn't record like a song. So we had to spend so much time just like in the basement playing together, because all we could do is like, hey, let's book a live show. So by the time that we were able to release more than just a single, we'd been playing together for like 3 years. So we had just gotten so comfortable with the live show that has been a big benefit to our story, is that if you want to, you have to come see us live. That's kind of where we shine. But once again, it was the benefit of we couldn't even afford at the time to record.
Right. Wow. And your shows, how long does it take you all to choreograph what you're doing as far as a show goes? I mean, even watching just the James Corden thing, it was just so creative.
Well, thank you. Honestly, it's gotten easier. I think when we first started getting comedy up on its feet, I mean, back in the day, we even had theatrics, and it was just sort of just bouncing ideas off of each other, pushing each other outside of our comfort zones to do things that maybe we normally wouldn't do. I mean, it's no easy feat for Danny and Chance to be doing some of the choreography that I give them while also playing their parts, and I'm over here, I just have to sing. But yeah, I think now at first there was maybe a little bit of hesitation because it maybe felt silly, but then it just feels so right, and now everybody's on board with in the rehearsal room just coming up with ideas. And finding little moments to kind of click in together, but they're just bullet points, and that's my favorite thing to say is it's just we have to get to from A to B, but everything in between is magic. That is and it is. It's very fun.
Love it. So after you all record comedy, that must have been that's really your first step in the studio together, as far as putting out. You talked about not having money and not being able to really record something, just mainly we're jamming together and we're getting these songs tight, but going in to record comedy. And then I obviously want to talk to you about the new music, which is awesome, but when you go in to the studio to record that, did it all transfer over the way you pictured it in the live recording, or was there a lot of tinkering to do? I mean, I would imagine like a studio setting with the capability to do so much versus just, being a band together. Did that change a lot or not so much?
We were able to record.
We talked about this kind of recently. Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just saying we were able to record one song with a couple demos that we never released as Perda with a friend's studio. So we had a little experience in the assembly line of kind of that one day to do this. That approach kind of translated into the 2-week span we had, because we wrote the records with our producer and co-writer David Stewart. Each day was like a new record, and later that day, in the second half of the day, we would just record. So we had experience with the very, very limited. We could only afford one day, pre-signing, that we recorded our one song as Perda. And I think we were able to strike while the iron was hot and just get things done. I think like our song Alive was truly written and recorded in one day. I think nearly their song was as well. So we had a little bit of experience in being efficient. We had a little more time to think with these. We did have a second week afterward to do little touch-ups. We brought in some horn players we knew. They hired a chamber orchestra. So there's a little more elaboration with that. But it wasn't too different, actually, in terms of how quick we just kind of settled on something and committed. And, it was very efficient.
I think, Daniel, were you saying something?
I think that was me maybe cutting Justin off before. Okay. Yeah. No, I was saying, yeah, like it translated, and it's also like it's a different. The difference was if all of a sudden felt like, okay, like we're on a timeline, we have something to deliver, we have a budget. It just, so the work translated, but also we've talked before. It's like when you enter into the industry and there's kind of an expectation, like how you work changes. And it can be a super positive thing because we learn a lot when you're in a studio for 2 weeks. You're kind of just like banging things out. And I think the thing that we're learning now, and as we continue to grow, is kind of like how to do that, how to utilize those skills, but also like not forget the basement days where like you are just kind of screwing around with your friends and like trying to make something and not, feel like you have to deliver a specific thing. So yeah, I think the first step was like really a learning experience of the tools, specifically that Luka and Chance had garnered over those, that lockdown period where they were just meeting 100 people and being like, can we just write and just get stuff out?
Yeah. And then you just released, well, you have a song coming out, tomorrow? Today? I think. With Someone's Gotta Love. Oh, Friday the 7th. My days are all off. Someone's Gotta Love them. But I love, just going back real quick to Catch Me If You Can, I love that song. What you all are doing is it's so unique. It's just like, it has like a Queen vibe with the backing vocals, especially like in a lot like there's just so much happening. I think it's so rad. And I'm just curious, like going in to do Catch Me If You Can, like, and this next one you're going to release, like was that process any different than going with comedy or the songs? Like how when you go into the studio, how do you approach it?
We usually start with the top line, and then like the boys will, it's different every time for each song. There was and also we did quite a few writing sessions before we finally got to go into the studio to really lay everything down. So we got like a good 15, 20 songs, and then I started realizing that I was writing a lot about sort of like reflecting on what has happened in the past 9 years since we've been a band. And so Catch Me, and like how there have been people who have come in and out of our lives and have spoken to us with in absolutes, like this is what you need to be doing, this is how it needs to be done, and really like bringing a negative energy. And when we wrote Catch Me If You Can, it really felt like it was our way of sort of childishly saying, like, regardless of those kinds of people, we're headed to the top, whatever the top looks like. And so that was sort of the front runner, and what then each song after that was just sort of about like empowering ourselves. Slutty is about a whorish empowerment song. It's just it remains silly and it remains fun and whimsical, which is what we all sort of love to bring to the stage. So yeah, it's different every time. but yeah, Catch Me If You Can was the front runner. That was sort of the one that was like that direction.
Okay, so that started like the trajectory of what came after the fact, as far as like a direction for a project.
Yeah, for this EP, for sure.
Okay, and so the new one is Catch Me If You Can, or no, that was the one you just released. Sorry. The new one is Someone's Gotta Love 'Em, and tell me about that song a bit.
That one is a culmination of, story-wise anyway, it's a culmination of sort of all the nights out in the major cities that we've had and all these characters that we've met. And, as we were writing it, I was just like, it was fortunately one of those songs where it's like, the words just kept coming out and it kind of came together quickly. And at the end, I was just like, it's funny because I again, like holding a mirror up to myself, I was like, the girls paying $20 for a dollop of wine. The guy, the failed porn star, the failed porn star turned poet, which is genuinely a person I've met. I was like, I feel like I relate so much to them. So at the end of the song, we end with the lyric, the whole time I'm saying someone's gotta love them, someone's gotta love them. And then at the end, I say someone's gotta love me. And only because I'm like, I am all of these people. These boys are all of these people. And it's sort of our like, call to our greater freakish family out there that's just like, if you feel like a fucking loser in these cities, come to the show because you'll be in good company.
And you guys are on a big headliner right now. You play tonight, I think, right in New York, in Brooklyn.
We do. We
man. Well, thank you for taking time to chat with me. If you got to prep for a show and everything.
I appreciate it.
With this tour, do you when you guys play, when you do a tour, do you come up with a different, like, I'd imagine, like, is it hard to kind of come up with a new show, since you bring this theatrical element to it? It's not just like, okay, we're gonna go out and play our songs. Like, there must be a lot more prep and rehearsal into having something bigger.
I feel, or this is like only the second iteration of what would be an outing on a headline context. So we've been using themes and bits from the old show, like choreo and moments musically and stuff, and we kind of fleshed the old songs out a little bit more, add in some more intros and outros, and then and then with the new music, it kind of already just made itself. It already made the show fresh because it was new music, and we were just doing what we did with the old song to the new.
Right.
So yeah, so this is like only our second go at like putting on a show, but it definitely feels fresh, and I'm sure the next time we'll add more fresh, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah. It's kind of like Luka said, where it's like all these songs and all these moments kind of have like an A to B. Like, okay, we know at this point in the set that maybe Luka and Chance are interacting, or maybe Chance and Danny do, but it's not really explicit of like what exactly is going to happen. It's just kind of like we have marks, and then as Luka said, like that's where the magic is. It's kind of each show. It's kind of like we know something's going to happen here amongst these people or with the audience, but it's kind of up to the members of what that's going to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because even with like a live, when you guys played on James Corden, it was in the beginning, Luka's just singing, and then it, like, when the music really kicks in, you can tell it's more like loose, as far as you're just running around and you guys are kind of jamming, but then you interact with each other, but it's not like, okay, at this moment I'm going to run over to you and then we're going to do, it doesn't seem like that, at least.
Yeah, right. That was a fun experience too, because it was our first time working with like a camera crew where like there were certain marks, it's like okay, we had that moment, I'm standing on the piano and that's planned, but it starts with Colin's hands, and that was like all very, like that was all like a part of the plan, and then it ends on my hand reaching to the sky, and then getting shot down by God, and it's like it's all, that's all supposed to happen, but how we get there is up to the moment.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Thank you guys again so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do have one more question. I want to get an answer from everybody, if that's cool. If you have
course.
any advice for aspiring artists.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Be the worst person in the room. Well, I mean, like musician or actor. Be the least talented person in the room.
Be a shitty person.
Yeah.
You'll get far. Oh, that's hysterical.
I think just stick to your guns. Like don't change what feels right because others may ascribe a different meaning to you, and because it will come through as inauthentic. So just truly stay true and do what you do, and people will find you.
No matter how much you might have to be flexible and bend and relinquish control, hold on to a little bit of something at least that keeps you and makes your voice your voice.
Love that.
Love that.
I'd probably say be bold and steer clear of people who creatively speak in absolutes. There's a million ways to get a beautiful song. Yeah.
Thank you. I love that too. That's funny that just Luka, you saying speaking in absolutes. My wife always gets so pissed at me for doing that. Like I'll be like, we never get to do. What do you mean never? That's never happened. It's just like, I need to work on that myself.
Well, it's just so silly because I'm like, yes, there are some things that are truth. There's science, there's math, but then with art, it's just so bizarre to me to be like, it has to be this way, and I'm like, or it doesn't.
Bringing it backward.